The playtest is ending, so this video is going to be going over my thoughts about Chaos Zero Nightmare having played it during the playtest. The big thing I'll say is that I find myself wanting to play the game more, which is good. I think that just means that I actually enjoy the core gameplay loop of this game, which is largely just doing runs in Chaos, so that's a good sign at least. The other stuff, the art, I think the art is really, really nice. All of the stuff in the game looks good. We'll talk about combat, which I think the combat is fluid, but there's definitely some improvements that could be made to it. For farming, there's also improvements that could be made there. And then the gacha system as well. I'd give this a tentative like 7 out of 10 for now. There's a lot of really glaring issues that could be fixed very easily, like a lot of translation issues and some basic QOL stuff I think that needs to be added to the game. If they add that, I'll give it an 8. The big thing though is that this is a gacha game. You're not going to be able to tell how good the game is until you really get a few months deep, because there are some very good games out there that get bogged down by being like really, really predatory gachas, and hopefully this isn't one of them. So that's why I don't really think it's possible to rate this any higher until we see what the landscape of the game looks like in like 4 to 6 months after more limited units have come out. Once they start releasing like newer content, what does that content look like? Are we going to have like a Honkai Star Rail Firefly situation where they release one brand new endgame mode, another like brand new mode, and then it felt like the content in the game was designed around her for like half a year, which was kind of annoying. So as long as you can still clear the content with like, let's just say 4-star units, then I think it's okay. So for the game itself, I think the art is really nice. Like all these characters, debatably, some of these, I don't like their designs that much, but the characters in combat all look great. They have their cards here, and the card arts are all super nice. You can also see that even though like they're minis in the fight, they have pretty nice animation still for the minis, especially like on their ego skill ults. Even though they do have a 2D animation cut-in, which every character has 1 or 2. Even the mini part of this looks really nice, I think, especially for somebody like Renoa. And then the backgrounds also look really, really nice. Like, all of the backgrounds in the fights, pretty much, like, they stand out a decent amount to me. Just being, like, so dynamic. And then some of the events have really nice backgrounds as well. So you can just see that kind of stuff like this. It just looks really, really nice. The combat itself, I think the combat is pretty solid. Like, you have all these characters working together. Some characters are really, really strong together, like Clepe and Magna together, I think is an insane duo. There's definitely some QOL that needs to be had though. Like, here, when you click on this card, you can see lead. So yes, lead, 50% chance to reduce the card's cost by 1. What is crystallization? We shouldn't have to memorize all of these terms, and what if it's a new character you've never used before? You're not going to be able to memorize all these terms. I think crystallization is like plated armor. And then you have some other characters that are like, what is vulnerable? What does vulnerable do? Like, okay, vulnerable, it sounds like it's like a debuff on the boss, but do they take more damage? Does it do this? Does it do that? So this sort of stuff really needs to be shown on the side here. I think any sort of like buff slash debuff, like how Epic 7 does it, should have a little box telling you what to do. One more thing is that, we can look at this card to be honest, each card has 5 different epiphanies. Now one thing with the events in this game is that you can, especially in Act 2, very, very common, that the event gives you an option to give a card an epiphany. Now when you're picking which card gets the epiphany, you can't see what epiphanies the card has. So if I'm trying to decide which card to pick, and I don't happen to have all 5 epiphanies memorized for every single card that I own, then I'm kind of just guessing. I just pick one at random, honestly. I'm like, oh, it's probably this one. Surely this one has good epiphanies. So it'd be nice if we could see those, just to be able to make better decisions during the combat itself. Another thing is also card epiphanies. So there's epiphanies that boost your card, make them stronger, like the ones I showed here. And then there is also when you do your Chaos runs, at the start you only have 4 cards, and you need to do Epiphanies just to get the other 4. You also can't see which ones you're missing, and yes, it's only 4 cards, but we should still also be able to see which ones we're missing, so we know that, like, let's say we get an event that says you can give a character an Epiphany, and you know that this one is going to give them a new unique card instead of making a card stronger. That way you can see like which character is like missing what unique cards pretty much. So that's mainly it for the combat. I think besides that, the combat feels nice. One thing though is I feel like shielders might be a little bit too strong, because for shielders, the way that stress works in this game is if you shield all the damage, you don't really get any stress, which is a bit of a problem because if you aren't running a shielder, you're going to die, especially in deep trauma mode in higher difficulties. The highest one we had was level 30. It feels like you need a shielder. That's why something like Calipe and Magna are some of the strongest units in the game, plus Maribel. That's because all 3 of them are shielders that do pretty decent damage. I think it's like pretty much mandatory almost to have a shielder, which I don't know if that's necessarily good, because that sort of limits your team building abilities a little bit. But that's definitely a thing. I think maybe they could make shielding still increase your stress a little bit, and then make healing decrease your stress more. It does a little bit already, but make healing decrease your stress more to balance it out. Ideally, like the same level of stress we have now, but with it shifted a bit more towards healing for the reductions would be nice for helping with team diversity, I think. And then we should also talk about the farming in this game. I'm usually not a big advocate for this, but I actually think that it would be really nice if we got sweeps for the farming. Now, you are able to farm pretty fast at some point, because once you start getting characters, like if I just load in a bunch of DPS characters, you could probably farm pretty fast. But I think that the gameplay of the game itself takes long enough already that I don't want to spend like time farming like this. My deep trauma mode level 30 clear took me an hour, and I did multiple runs and they all took 1 hour, which isn't bad. Like I liked doing the runs. It's just with the main, I would say the main core of the game is already engaging and it takes a really long time, so I feel like any time spent farming here just feels like a nuisance, like it's just a chore, waste of time, which is, yes, every game is like that, but it feels really different here than in Epic 7 to me, because in Epic 7, even before we had background battling, the core of the game was just autoing everything in the first place. It definitely was a bit more annoying before we got auto repeats, but ever since we had auto repeats, it's fine, I think. But this, I would just like sweeps. I think I recognize the thing where you could farm certain saves to make your farming faster, but I think sweeps would just make this a lot less tedious and give us more time to do things like play Chaos. And we haven't even had the zero system yet, so there's more things to do there. We also don't have access to gear farming yet, so we don't know what that's going to be like. That's definitely something to check out once the game actually launches, but hopefully it's not too bad. You can see this thing is locked. There's also this thing here, the challenges. This is the weekly bosses, and I have a bit of concerns about the drop rates on this. So I've only done difficulty 2. I haven't done difficulty 3 yet. I can't enter because I used up my attempts and I hit level 30 afterwards. But I don't know if maybe at like the higher difficulties, you get more drops per run. But at the very least, at difficulty 2, you only get 1. And that's not very good, because when you go look at the potential tree, you can see this one, well, this one I already enhanced, but it costs 1. This costs 1 each. This costs 2. This costs 2. This costs 4. This costs 2. There's a lot here. It's like 37, I think, total, which is going to take you a while to get. If you're getting 3 a week, 37 is going to take you 12 weeks. So about 3 months to fully enhance the character, which is way too long, I think. I would definitely assume that higher difficulties drop more, but even at difficulties 1 and 2, it should not be dropping 1. I think the weekly, like, lockout things are really annoying in general, and it would be nice if we could build our characters quickly. We shouldn't be waiting super long to have to build our characters. Keep in mind we have to build more than one. Like, there's a lot of characters to be built. The ones I'm looking at are Calipe, Magna, and then there's also Tressa, Mika, so that's at least 4 already for me. So that's the farming stuff. And then the gacha system is hard to judge because we don't know what the income is going to look like, what kind of events are we going to have, that sort of thing. We do have info about the rates themselves, which I already put out a whole thing on, but the rates look decent. It has the 50-50 system, but our base 5-star rate is a little bit higher. You can see like a lot of people are going to be getting their rate up 5-star pretty early. But we'll definitely need to see what the actual income is like. Partner banners as well. We should have limited partners too, and you can buy the standard partners in the shop at least for this, which you get these pretty fast, so that's pretty nice. And there's this whole thing, which I'll talk about in a separate video too. I think this is like okay, it's just a little fun thing to do for the characters you like. I also forgot to talk about the story. I thought the story was okay. Like, the prologue I thought was pretty solid, did a good job of setting up the world and everything. Beyond that, it hasn't really gotten super dark or anything yet, so if that was the tone you were expecting for the story, it doesn't quite seem like it's going in that direction. Then again, it is also doing a lot of just world building and setup right now. We're in chapter 3 only, and we haven't had anything like with the sort of, what is the word, the stakes that the prologue had, I guess. But we'll see where it goes from here. I think it's been okay so far, but a lot of games don't have great starts. I think just because you're setting up so much stuff, it takes a while to get going for a lot of things, but if that's what you were looking for, then that's my general thoughts on the story. That's pretty much my overall thoughts on the game. I think it's a good game. Definitely needs some touch up in some places. Pretty basic stuff, like the translation stuff is whatever. We definitely need a bit of QOL for the card effects in the fights themselves. And hard to judge the game early, I know, but so far I would say it's a pretty good game.